Thank you everyone for joining today. Very good morning. I was just coming out of a session where they were talking about how important AI and RPA is going to be, especially in the coming legislative session. And whenever we all state leaders have been told to do more for less, that means coming, budget cuts and things like that. So we have to innovate on everything that we can do so that we can do more for less. So I want to thank Smartbridge for organizing this, but also wanted to share what DIR is doing from an AI and RPA perspective at the state level, and also to help everyone to engage and be ready for this in the next wave. So one of the things that we are doing is, procurement is one of the most critical things. So we have been doing a lot of proof of concepts, and we have been seeing a lot of technologies. And one key thing that we all need to put in place is that the ability to procure the software. And then we have an upcoming AI-based contract coming up. Please look out on our DIR website for that. It will be a large, it will not be a one or two individuals, but a group of vendors. The second thing is proof of concept. Nothing like getting into the it's like swimming, I call it. You need to be in the water to be able to learn with it. So we have been doing a lot of POCs and engagements. I want to call out TDLR. I'm sure Jody's here, and then TPWD, HHS, and many of those agencies we have been partnering with and trying to create that center of excellence. On November 10th, we are presenting the AI Center of Excellence to our board of directors, and we'll be showcasing what DIR is envisioning from a COE perspective. And I request everyone to be part of that. And what that means is that collectively learning and bringing the vendor partners and together forming that system where we can quickly take one or two use cases that is very close to our heart, and then be able to prove it out in the next few months to come. The last point I wanted to make is that there are a lot of education materials available, and the events, especially the event that Joe is hosting today. These are the the beginning, and we will follow this with a deep dive session where we will take a group of people who are interested, and then do a hands-on session where you are able to try out different technologies, where it be with the main cloud providers or where it be with any of the other automation solutions that are out there. And I don't want to call out names, but all the industry leaders who are in quadrant 1 of Gartner. The last thing is reach out to us anytime. And then, I want to take one or two examples. We had a telecom solution where people were both doing cut and paste solution every day, and we were able to put RPA and then make them, give that free weekend and, hours, right? It's not just taking jobs. I was hearing from Jody about the option to give a mobile solution to all the salon and electricians and plumbers, and imagine how they can manage their work in the short time while they are at work and not depending on a computer. And what that will also do is add more work to the state and agencies in the call center. And then since we are not able to scale up on the FTEs, what we can do is that we can give that take advantage of AI solution there. The last thing is you can do a lot of great things. You can do work with people, you can do strategy, learn new technologies, while leave the mundane task to the bots to do. So they never get tired of cut and pasting. They never get tired of scanning a document, right? So we are thinking of leaving those things over to the bot so that we can do more things and more cool things with internet and IoT and any new technology that you deem fit, and also add to your career. That's all I have. Reach out to us, and then we'll be able to work collaboratively and make RPA work for state of Texas.
Great, thank you, Krishna. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're coming in loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you, Krishna. That was really good to see how the state has starting to embrace automation and AI and these technologies that will really bring a high level of efficiency and make our government so much more efficient for the people and the constituents that you serve. So today's discussion, when we were approached by Joy, it's really about giving the audience an overview about RPA. What is the art of the possible from RPA, showing you some of the use cases that what Krishna highlighted, and use cases that could apply in the public sector space. And we'll talk a little bit about Center of Excellence. What is the Center of Excellence, and what are the components that help you be successful with Center of Excellence. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the best practices around RPA, what works, what doesn't work, how you should go about, with your particular agency moving forward with RPA. And then finally, we'll have a few use cases that we will present to you, which hopefully resonate with the audience, and how you can use it in the public sector space. And then finally, we'll do a demo. And that'll kind of go over what we are planning to give you an example of how RPA works in real life. We make sure the slides move forward. Okay, there we go. So I talked about the agenda from that perspective, so I'm going to move forward. From a quick introduction, myself, Sanat Nileshwar, I'm from Smartbridge. I am the RPA practice leader. Smartbridge has been doing RPA now for over 3 years, and we're really excited to present information about RPA to the audience at State, and excited to see how you can take it forward. With me, I have Raul Pina, who is the RPA Architect, and Raul will get into some of the use cases that I talked about, and actually perform a demonstration of how RPA is going to work for you. So real briefly, a little bit about Smartbridge. We are a Houston, Texas-based company, 17 years in operation. We are, a boutique firm, as a euphemism for a small company, but we are about 75 people, and we've done a lot of work, with different customers. We've done some work in the public sector as well. As you can see, we've completed almost 1,500 projects in the past 5 years. Many of them have been in the RPA space as well. One of the things that is part of Smartbridge DNA is our culture of innovation, and that's what Krishna was talking about. It is how you can build that culture within your different agencies, and that's something that we have done within Smartbridge, is looking at some of these new technologies and taking it forward and bringing it to the benefit of our customers. Related to the Smartbridge RPA practice itself, like I said, we've been in doing this for the past 3 years or so. We have several different areas that we help our customers with, all the way from RPA advisory services to select the right technology, to implementing RPA solutions for your agency, and then implementing Center of Excellence. So, making sure that you have the right governance structure, you have the right people, you have the right process and technology all coming together to build scale within your organization. And then finally, we also provide training services all the way from citizen developers, so people who are not core software IT developers, but people who know the process, are running it on a day-to-day basis, are able to build automation for themselves, and to expert developers who build resilient, error-safe automations that can run day in and day out without stopping. We also do business analyst training, infrastructure training, and executive awareness training. One of the things we are very proud about is the vendors that we work with. All state-of-the-art, high-value vendors. We are vendor agnostic, but the leading vendors out there for RPA is who we work with. The last thing I'd like to point out is one of the things that we do is we provide a service called Rapid Automate, which is that the customer, the agency that is looking to implement RPA will not have to really have any investments up front. Smartbridge will take care of all the building, the design, development, testing, the software licenses, as well as the infrastructure. And the agency immediately receives the benefit of the automation without having to do the upfront investment. And if there's anybody who's interested in that, we can have a separate discussion. So what's the case for RPA? RPA has been, discussed now for several years. There's been, a lot of information out there that has been, presented about RPA. I just want to briefly go over what is the hype about RPA. It is something that really has been accelerating, especially, what we have seen, since the beginning of this year when the pandemic hit us. There's been a little bit of slowdown when companies and agencies and governments try to reorganize themselves as to how they would operate in this new normal. But as we move forward from into Q3 and Q4, we are seeing a rapid acceleration and adoption of RPA. And whatever was slowed down in the first couple quarters of the year has accelerated even faster than it ever was. And we are seeing the adoption accelerate. What we're expecting is that the RPA market in 2021 will be about $3 billion. And we are seeing a 30+% growth on an annualized basis. And the market is just going to continue to grow from there. One of the reasons why it is so popular and starting to get so much traction is because of the cost of RPA. It is much cheaper to do a solution like RPA versus things like integration or other kinds of technologies, because it's the speed to market is so much faster. And then secondly, the cost of doing RPA is so much cheaper than actually acquiring additional resources, about a third cheaper than a resource that is here in the US versus an offshore resource about a fifth cheaper. So just want to make sure that you're aware of the value proposition that RPA presents itself. The automation impact, as you can see, is now measured in trillions of dollars. So as you can see, the knowledge workers and the global workforce that is going to be impacted is going to be very, very significant. So as you can see, this slide is kind of presenting the evolution of technology, right? In previous years, we've when ERP came along, CRM came along, there were business process automations that took place. Now with RPA technology, you are actually taking away some of those manual activities that these other technologies like ERP and CRM has imposed upon agencies and governments, and taking away those manual activities, those repetitive tasks that really are mundane, don't really add much value, and replace that with software activities, software automation. As we move forward, what Krishna was talking about, more and more intelligent automation is starting to take place. So if you think about things like natural language processing, where you can where the technology will understand unstructured information that is presented to itself and make decisions based on that. So we are starting to see trends in that direction. So really, as we move forward, the cost reduction, improved quality, improved speed, compliance, reduced risk, all these are great benefits and goals that are achieved as a result of RPA. So what can RPA do? What can these software robots do for you when they do this automation? So those are some of the basic activities that we're calling out here. Whether you log into an application, you want to move files from point A to point B, you want to be able to read information from databases, whether it's so one of the use cases that is very, very popular among some of the customers that I'm working with is scanning of documents that are on paper. These paper documents that are there, scanning them, imaging them, and then running them through a process to recognize what kind of documents they are, extracting that data, and then loading it into your systems. A lot of manual activities that are involved with that can be eliminated. Scraping data from websites, so getting data from a form that is put on one website and extracting it and putting into another website. A very good example of that is background checks. So when you're doing background checks, you have information that is on a, maybe in your ERP system, in your personnel files. Try to bring that into the background check software. So RPA is really good to take that information. Otherwise, you're dealing with swivel chair. You're taking information from one place and loading it to another place. So really, a lot of these things can be automated. Another thing is AI, using APIs. So you don't have to consider RPA just to be UI based. If a system has got API technology enabled in it, RPA can take advantage of that. And what that does is actually makes things a lot more efficient. Things run a lot faster and less error prone. So definitely you want to take advantage of APIs when you can do that. We talked about the extraction of documents, of information from documents, PDFs, emails, forms. I think that's a very good use case there. Opening emails and attachments, and obviously, Excel. Everybody loves Excel. We do a lot of work in Excel. We get data from different databases, put it all together, massage that information, do pivot tables, and then set it on as reports. So a lot of the analyst work that is done to gather information and put it into a report, that can all be automated using RPA technologies. So Zach, do we have any questions that are being posed by people that I could answer at this point?
No, not yet, Sanat. So you're good to go ahead and continue. Okay.
I can see the chat screen. So there's a lot of screens going on. So just sort of make sure I'm not missing something.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah, I'm monitoring all these from my end. I'll let you guys know, though.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with all this, right, what are the benefits of automation? So, we talked about, where automation can be used. One of the major benefit, is this high productivity, which, bots can operate at 24/7, 365 days of the year, doesn't take vacation, doesn't need to, have coffee breaks, those kind of things. And, really, you can receive a high level of productivity by automation. Obviously, cost savings. Really, in today's situation, it's not so much as in impacting people from losing jobs, but it's more about doing more with less, right? So there's a lot more new unfunded mandates that are being imposed upon agencies and governments. How can you use the people that you have to do all this work that you had not budgeted for? And that's where RPA can come in and provide that savings that you would need to go and hire additional people. Quality is something that definitely higher quality services can be provided as a result of using automation technologies. Scalability and flexibility. So, for example, you were in situations that some of the agencies were overwhelmed with especially unemployment benefits and SNAP benefits forms that came in. Suddenly you had to scale up the ability to address that. Now, imagine if you had something like RPA, which was able to address some of these things in a lot more efficient manner. All you would have to do is add a few more robots to be, take care of some of this scaled up requirements that came as a result of COVID. And you can see some of the other pieces of how RPA would benefit. But one thing I want to leave you with is the speed to market. Recognize that something like RPA can get you that speed to market, get you the the automation, the benefits that you're looking for from an organizational standpoint, much faster than any other technologies out there. The main thing to keep understand about RPA is not about replacing manual labor. It's about enhancing human productivity. So it's about releasing people from doing the mundane, manual activities and allowing them to do much more higher value activities, so that the agency, the government, the company gets a lot more benefit from the people who understand what is core for the benefit of their constituents. So let's talk a little bit about where RPA can be used in the public sector. So, as you can see there, this is a heat map that provides across the different verticals out there, whether it's in government administration, education, transportation. There are lots of different areas where RPA technology can be employed very, very well. The blue ones are ones where you have a high potential, and the yellow ones are a little bit less. And then obviously the red is where you really don't have a good potential for RPA. Now, some of the areas that RPA has been really successfully used is things like employee HR personnel onboarding, skills mapping, public records inquiries. When these information comes in through email or through chats, RPA can pick up that information, decipher what is being requested, verify the identity of the person, and then send out those requests that are coming in. Welfare, pension, and child maintenance policy management, all of that can be done with RPA. Background checks, what I mentioned earlier, is definitely a great use case for RPA. And then, supplier management. So many suppliers want to work with federal agencies, with state and local agencies. This supplier intake and managing that information and making sure that you're able to be more responsive to your suppliers. That's where RPA technology can come in. And then finally, in the tried and tested field of RPA, finance and accounting processes are heavy use cases for RPA. And obviously, every state, local government has got financial processes that can be employed there. Any questions before we move forward?
So now it looks like we don't have any in the chat at this time, so you are good to move forward. Krishna, however, made a pretty good point in our chat whenever he mentioned that Excel is not AI and it's also not database. Would you happen to have any kind of comments there?
Can you repeat the question?
We didn't have a question. Krishna had actually just made a comment that Excel is not artificial intelligence. And that might be a misconception. And okay. I think it was something you said before. I just didn't know if you wanted to comment further on that.
The AI, it's really around where the technology is going, where RPA is being integrated with some of the machine learning and AI technologies to do even more where the information is unstructured and being able to make sense of that information. So that's really where some of these AI technologies are coming in play.
Understood. So,
as a result of pandemic, there's been a lot of pressures on local and state governments, especially also federal governments. But really, there's been a big burden as a result of that. And RPA technologies can definitely enable, help relieve some of the burdens that have been caused as a result of the pandemic. So, things like extraction data from paper and imaging that, and so eligibility benefits and things that come in through paper or forms that, that people fill out. RPA can take advantage of that and really start moving things in a faster direction. Chatbot integration can be used to provide scale in contact centers. So your call centers that you have where you can streamline information, getting these services logged into your service ticket system, and then using chatbots to respond to whatever requests that are coming in. So you can see that across the board, whether it's in work from home kind of deal, or trying to understand how people are dealing personally with the virus and their health, and then providing scale to the contact centers. There's been a lot of areas in which the burden that's been caused by the pandemic, RPA technologies have been used successfully to relieve some of the pressures.
Hey, Sanat, we actually did have a question come into the chat if you could address it. Amy asked, what about access databases in RPA? Would you be able to speak on that for just a minute?
Great. Thank you for that question, Amy. So, so RPA technology is agnostic from the database standpoint. So in all the technology that we have seen, it uses generic ODBC type connectivity. So whether you have an Oracle database or a Microsoft SQL Server database or Access database, you have the ability to inquire that information based on the ODBC connectors. Rahul, do you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think you mentioned it all. One thing I want to add is in the demo today, we're going to show a database demo.
Okay, great. Thank you. So who are the key players in the industry that, that RPA technology impacts, right? Who are the, I hope you can see the slide. It's a little bit of an eye chart. Sorry about that. But this is one of the latest charts from Gartner. And you can see there in the top right quadrant, software vendors like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism are very well positioned with their technology to serve the needs of the state agencies. And one thing I'll add is that Microsoft recently made an acquisition of a company called Softmotive, and Microsoft is starting to move up that ladder as well very fast. And if you know Microsoft, they're a technology company that invests pretty heavily in technology that is a lot of promise in the industry. And so if they definitely will be getting better in that space. They're not there yet, but I feel in the next 18 to 24 months they will play with the top players. But you would not go wrong with any of the three top players that are in the current top right quadrant.
Hey, Sanat, we actually, before you get into that, we had a really good question come through from Henry. He asked, can RPA force compliance with filling out a form?
That's a really good question. So there's a different ways that can be that can be addressed. The form itself can have some built-in functionality to force things to be filled out. But let's say if a form is not completely filled out by an individual, and the RPA technology then verifies the information, and it can take that information and then go to maybe your ERP or whatever system of record that you have to verify information, and it can respond back to the person who filled out the form saying there is this kind of information is missing or incorrect or needs to be verified. So that can be done by RPA to enable that, because otherwise a human would have to do that, go into a different system and verify that. You would certainly save many minutes of manual labor doing that through a system like RPA.
Thank you.
So again, another view of the different players out there in the RPA space. So I'm not going to dwell too much time on this. I'm going to move forward. And like Joy mentioned, if some people joined late, we will be making this slide share available, and you'll obviously have access to this. And any questions come up after that, feel free to contact Rahul or I. So what are the trends in automation? So we talked a little bit about AI and ML, but one of the trends that is really coming up is around what is quote unquote hyper automation. So in a lot of ways, automation today is being used for very small task oriented activities. Hey, I want to make get data from one place, create a report and send it out to someone. It's a very small task oriented activity. But if you consider an end-to-end activity, an order to cash process, a procure to pay process, there are lots of different activities that are performed by different departments, different people. There are approvals that happen, and so forth. Now, hyperautomation, what it does is it doesn't say that you're going to automate every step of the process, but you will take specific steps that make sense to with a highly manual that can be automated using RPA, but then you would weave that in with people performing specific actions. So that way, what you're doing is you're creating a human robot type process from an end-to-end standpoint that is weaved together to produce the desired results. So hyperautomation is something that is being looked at pretty closely by a lot of people, and we are starting to see a lot more benefits that are being derived as a result of that. Another area that is trending significantly is, like I mentioned earlier, around AI and machine learning, particularly in natural language processing. So this is taking unstructured information, text that is like somebody's inputting information into a chatbot, and the NLP system takes those phrases, takes that information, makes sense of it, and then comes up with what the intent of that message is. So for example, somebody says, my application is locked up, or my computer is not working, or different phrases like that, taking that, recognizing what the individual is trying to say, and say, oh, you have a password lock, you need a password reset, and it moves forward and does that. So that's the kind of interpretation of that information that you can do with things like NLP. Now, where can NLP be used, right? So one of the areas that we are actually doing a project for one of our customers is around support tickets. So support tickets are coming in. They're coming in through different channels, whether it's coming through chats, they're coming through emails, they're coming through different channels, and the RPA technology is picking that up, trying to make sense of that unstructured information that is in the email, in the subject line. Is this an application bug? Is it a password reset? Is it what kind of category it belongs to? And using that information to create the ticket and then route it to the right person to take the right action. So we are starting to see a lot more things along those lines. I want to spend a couple minutes here talking about your RPA journey. So it's, RPA is not just taking, a piece of technology, any of the top players that I talked about earlier and implementing that. It is about, creating your, journey and creating a roadmap of how you can get to where you're today, to being somewhere where you are scalable, you are, you're able to, support the processes that you have governance and policies around how the technology is going to be used and so forth. So that's all that is involved with the as you mature as an organization towards a highly efficient organization. So it's the crawl, walk, run kind of concept where you start small, you start building on top of that, you scale it up, and then you get a lot more results as a result of moving forward with the journey. Typically, the way we do this, journey is around multi-step process. So we start with a making sure you understand what you're getting into, having some kind of discussion, selecting the technology that you want to move forward with, and then in the crawl phase, conducting a pilot, doing a POC, identifying some processes that would give you the right benefit, and the organization would understand how you're going to use this technology, and then from that point on, starting to roll it up where you start scaling up. You need to have the right organization, you need to have the right governance, the policies and procedures, the people, all of that coming together to create a organization, call it the center of excellence. And then that operating model that you have then scales up to allow you to do a lot more automation in an efficient way. So okay, so Sanath, what does that mean? I mean, how do we know how long it takes to actually build these bots? So this slide hopefully gives you an idea what it takes to build some of these bots. Like I said, it's real speed to market is one of the things that we talk about from an RPA technology perspective. The For low complexity automations, typically you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks. Medium, you can see, is about 4 to 6 weeks, and high complexity, like anything else, it's anything above 8 weeks. But you can see that most of the work that we do lies in the low to medium complexity. You can really get great results taking into account some of the manual activities that you have going on, in the use cases that we talked about earlier. You can get a real good bang for your buck using those activities. So what is a COE? So COE, as Krishna had also mentioned earlier, Center of Excellence. It is the organization that you're trying to build that will allow you to execute your automation, your automation journey. It's about having the right people in place, having the right technology in place, having the right processes in place. And all three have to come together to get you an organization that allows you to build the scale to execute the right automations and get you to where your goals for the organization is, for your agency is. So along the way, you definitely have to, have the right, governance. What is the security that I'm going to have? How are people going to use attended bots, unattended bots? What kind of technology, we are going to allow them to build their own personal robots? All those kind of pieces come to play when you're designing your COE. And really, your COE helps you manage your automation pipeline in an efficient manner, so you can get the results that you're seeking. Speaking of automation pipeline, so it's when you're identifying these different use cases that will help your agency get more efficient, you push it through a funneling process where you're doing the process assessment, you're analyzing the opportunity, you're creating a business case, and then you seek approval before you move forward with the deployment. So by putting this kind of a organization in place to help manage your pipeline, you'll make sure that you automate the right processes and not get bogged down with putting things that are highly complex or don't give you the right the right level of efficiencies that you're seeking for the organization. This is a 2x4 that we typically use to identify which automations we should move forward with and which one we should not. We also have a ROI-based model that we put together and we work with the customers for, so that you can identify what kind of savings you're going to get over a 5-year roadmap, or all those things, to make sure that you are able to identify and select the right automation, right candidate processes for automation. These are some of the roles that would be part of your COE. You have the RPA sponsor. You obviously have to have business analysts, RPA developers, project managers, solution architects. When you start out initially, you may have the same people play multiple roles, but as you grow your organization and as you get more mature, you're going to see that you're going to need specific individuals to play different roles.
Hey, Sanat, we actually had a couple of questions come through the chat if you had some time to answer them. And we had 2. Okay, so we had another one from Henry, and he asked, how much of RPA implementation is commercial off-the-shelf versus custom-built RPA?
That's a good question, Henry. A lot of the processes that are there, can be used between different companies. So, as one of the things that these different vendors have is they have a set of library functions that can be utilized, for different areas. So, for example, if you're doing Excel manipulation, a lot of activities that are already there, can be done in Excel, have already been coded, and these are library functions that are available that can be used for any different use cases. But if you start considering a use case like order to cash process, different companies or different agencies will be doing things differently. Even though we as Smartbridge have built a lot of automations, when we go into an organization, we can take a lot of these automations and leverage what we've already done to bring efficiencies from a development process standpoint. So yeah, a lot of it can be reused, but a lot of it could also be customized.
Awesome. And we had another great question from Eduardo, and he asked, are there recommended security measures to consider when implementing RPA solutions?
Really good question. RPA solutions do require access into your different systems, right? So one of the technologies that are built into RPA is credential vaults, encryption of data, all these different features that require you to have security and around your data and your information is built into a lot of these major vendors out there. So when you start looking at whether it is HIPAA or GDPR or different different types of compliance that is requested from different areas, a lot of these major vendors, they have already been certified with those compliance. So you'll see that a lot of the security features that most places are looking for will already be built into these technologies.
Great, and thank you, Sanat. And just very fast, we had one more question come in. Chris asked about recognizing handwritten documents. So can you briefly speak to how RPA tools are sophisticated enough to recognize handwritten documents before you move on?
So and we'll talk about that in the use case. So Rahul, take a note to discuss that in the use case that we have. So
okay.
I'm going to hand it over to Rahul in just one more minute, and then he'll talk about that. So Paul, just hang on to that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to I want to make sure that you get a chance to look at some of the demos that, at least the demo that Rahul has prepared for you. One of the, I do want to spend a couple of minutes talking about some of the best practices and lessons learned that we've used, over the time that we've been implementing RPA. Is really, like Krishna was saying, it is a strategic priority. Make sure that that is something that continues within your agencies. The other thing I'll add is make sure that when you're doing RPA, you have a good partnership between business and IT. This is not a business-only activity or IT-only activity. It has to come together with business and IT working together for the success. Let's see if there's anything else. There's COE. I mentioned COE earlier. Having a correctly designed COE that works for you, and there is not a one-size-fits-all kind of model. It has to work for something that works for your agency, for your department, and that's really important that you have the right COE design that works for you and allows you to scale the RPA. A lot of places, what happens is you do one or two RPA technologies, you implement a robot or two, and then it just stalls. You don't want that because you've spent all that effort to get people aligned to move forward with RPA, and if it stalls, then you wasted all that effort. So having the right COE in place, having the right executive leadership pushing this forward is really important. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Rahul to talk about some of the use cases that have been developed and are ready to use. Go ahead, Rahul.
All right, thank you, Sanat. All right, so yeah, we're gonna talk about a couple of use cases we've developed for our clients. The first one, it's called RPA Enable Paper Form Document Processing. And this comes in hand with the question from Chris about handwriting. So just to explain this very high level, you can see step number one, we receive scanned forms or documents for processing. RPA has the ability to receive this in several ways. It could be in emails, it could be in a shared folder, it could even be through a web service. So we get that, then we pass it through an OCR engine. RPA has the capability to use several OCR engines to digitize these documents. Once we have all these documents digitized, we can go ahead and classify. Now, I'll stop a little bit at step 2 because this is where the handwriting will come in place. Typically, what we use for structured documents is OCR. OCR is pretty old and it's been around for some time. If we're talking about handwriting, though, it is no longer OCR. It's not even intelligent OCR. It becomes image recognition, which falls more in the category of the Google Cloud Vision, Azure Cloud Vision, all those services. As you all know, the handwriting from every interbuild is very different one from the other. We did a test with a use case that we were reading restaurant receipts. You have to put the tip and then sign them, and the total is usually handwritten. And for that, we had to use image recognition. So to me, doing handwriting as part of RPA goes to the next level of RPA, which is Chatbot Automation, as Annette mentioned, because it uses an AI engine that is image recognition. And that AI engine, you have to train it to be able to read those quantities. So yeah, that's how it would go. Okay. So RPA by itself does not do handwriting. You have to integrate it with an additional technology that it's an image recognition one. Okay, so once we digitize, that being said, once we digitize the documents, we classify them. By classifying, we mean we need to know what kind of document we're dealing with. It could be an invoice, it could be a contract, it could be a purchase order, things like that. Once we classify them, we know what document we're dealing with, and we extract the data. The cool thing about this is that if we're doing documents like, let's say, contracts, most of the contracts are different one from the other. So by doing this method, we are able to extract the data we want without the document being in the same format every time. So the data can be all across the document. As long as we have good indicators what data we need, we can extract that. Then we handle any exceptions. If for whatever reason the document is not recognized and we're not able to read it, we can ship it to a human person, and then they can we usually use an AI engine here, so they can teach that AI engine, hey, this document, this is how you read it. So the next time we encounter a document like that, we will know how to handle it, and that's what we call intelligent OCR. And then finally, we get the data in a format that we can use somewhere else, like Excel. It could be a database, it could be a JSON file. We can transmit it through a web service. So basically, the data is ready for whatever use we want to do to it. So if we want to put it in a system, things like that. So this is the first use case. So now if you want to move to the next one. Okay, the next one is called new hire provisioning, and this is an IT new hire provisioning. This is looking from an IT perspective. This use case is talking about creating all the accesses that a user needs when they first join a company, right? And so how this works is we get an email from the admin team saying, oh, we have a new hire who will be joining on this date. And we also created a standardized form that will have all the information we need. This robot will be constantly checking that email inbox for that new hire notification. And then once it gets, it will read all the fields from that email form or attachment or whatever we do. If it's an invalid request, we just reply back that the bot cannot read it. And then we will start running the AD scripts. So the AD scripts are, so we create the AD scripts to generate that user in Active Directory. Most companies nowadays use Windows, either on-prem or on the cloud. So we usually see Active Directory on a server or Azure Active Directory. We create the scripts to create that. For this particular step, I think we were using PowerShell. Then here we have a security problem because to be able to run these scripts, we need a domain admin account, which is for the non-technical people, it's a super powerful account that you don't want to give access to a robot. So for that, we need a person to come in. The scripts are already there. All they have to do is click them, and because their user is a domain admin, they will be able to execute. Versus the robot, if the robot tries to execute these scripts, it won't work. So this is when we have to, not all the processes are fully automatable. Sometimes you have to break them. And this is the case for this one. So we create these scripts, we notify the human that he needs to run them. He runs them. Once these are run, we trigger an alert to the robot that this step has been completed, and then it keeps going. The thing that happens after this is that we assign the licenses in Office 365, that it's the Azure platform. And the licenses means like the Office license, any other license they have, like Power BI, the email license, things like that. And then we finally send, we also check that the user is already there. If the user is invalid, we go back. And finally, we send an email saying, okay, this is completed, the user has been created. This is our second use case.
Rahul, I think in interest of time, maybe we should just go into the demo.
Yeah, this is that. Can you build the slide before I jump into the demo? So I think it's the next one. Yeah, that one. Okay, so the demo we prepared for you guys today is employee master data automation. It's a very simple demo, but it will show you how RPA works. Like Krishna said at the beginning, the best way to understand RPA is to experience it, and this will, hopefully this will do that. So number one step, we have an employee master data that it's in a database. We're going to extract that using RPA and running an SQL query. As Anat said, we connect to this database through ODBC and things like that. Then we generate the Excel file. This is just for tracking purposes. And then we go to our ERP and generate the employee from this data. Then we update this file with the ID that we got from our ERP. And then we create a final Excel file that it's a final result that is ready for the next steps. So now I'm going to show you guys a demo. So Sanat,
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, so the first thing I want to show you is the database we have. This is the data. This is our master data for the employees. For this demo, we're only going to do it for 3 records. You see, we have a lot more, but we're just going to do it for these 3. Okay, you see we have some fields here: first name, last name, ID, search type, address, city, state, zip code, and supplier. Okay, so this is our master data. This is what we're going to pull. Now we're going to run a robot here. I just have to click. This is just so you know, this is an attended robot. So I'm going to click play here, and the robot is going to start running. Here it told me, oh, the data was downloaded from SQL. Check Excel file. So this is just for you guys to see it. Okay, we usually don't do this. This just happens in the background, and no one ever knows. So this is the data that the robot just extracted, and you can see it here. And this is exactly the same data that I had in my database. I just extracted that and put it in an Excel file. Okay. Okay, so that's the original data. This folder is my output folder, so all the files are gonna come here. So once we're done with this, I'm gonna start the robot is gonna read this data and type it into the ERP. Okay. So let's once I click OK, we'll keep going. So I'll do that. Okay. So now it opened my ERP. It signs in. My hands are off the keyboard. I'm not lying. You can see them here. And then you can see that the robot is going to do everything by itself. So it's typing. It knows what screens to go. It knows what tabs to click. It can even open different windows, look for values. You can see that the state here is in a different format, so it has to open a different window and get it. And then you can see that I get warnings. This is common in all the applications. The robot knows how to handle these warnings. Okay, so you know, warnings, errors, anything that comes up, the robot has been coded to be able to handle that. So it's now typing the second record. You can see it there. The other comment I want to do is we did this demo using UI so that you guys can see how RPA looks when it's typing. But this can also be done through web services. We actually, in a real life scenario, we would go with web services because it's faster and it's a little more reliable. But for legacy applications and things like that, we would go, we can use UI also. And this also works in very old applications, like if you have any IBM mainframe applications, AS400 applications, this will work too. There are libraries, as Anat mentioned at the beginning, there are libraries that let you interact with all those systems. Okay, so we're almost done. It's typing the last one. We get a warning here because I already typed this record before, but it doesn't matter. The robot knows what to do with it. Okay, this is the last step, I believe. Once it's done, it's going to finish and it's going to get out of the application. So now it's logging out. We're done. Okay, now how do we know it ran? I mean, you guys saw it, but this was our original file, the original data. And then this is our loaded data file. And the difference we have here is that in the ID, let me put them side to side. The ID here was 123 because that's what I had in my database. But here I pull the ID from the ERP. When I enter a record in the ERP, my ERP tells me this is your ID. So that's what we are putting here. So our final result is this. And then we can do whatever we want with this information. We can move it to the next system. That could be like our payroll system or our whatever system. And that's basically it. So that's the demo. So now I'll stop sharing, Sanet. If anyone has any questions, they're welcome. How do I stop sharing?
Zach, any other questions?
No, sir. It does not look like we have any at this time.
Okay. So Joy, Krishna, I think from our perspective, we've completed the presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present that to the audience. I really appreciate that.
This is Joy. I found it very valuable. Thank you so much, all of you, your entire team. Krishna, do you have any final remarks you want to slide in?
No, I really enjoyed it. I was watching all through how the different slides, the reference on center of excellence, I love that. And then the crawl, walk, run, and I like the fly piece. I never, thought of adding that in, I may borrow that for my future, conversations. And one thing that Sanat mentioned and, Raul touched upon was the document scanning. In one of the POC that we did, the person was scanning documents all day, right? From morning till 8 or 10 or whatever, right? She has to finish that all day and then only go home. And this would say ideally in a time, say it took 8 hours. In literally terms, it may have taken 11 or 12 hours. And we were able to use, since they're talking about UiPath, we were able to use UiPath and use Abby. And then this was, this at least one set of files we have done in about 2 minutes. So you're looking at that kind of, fast performance and actually easing the tension or, letting the employees or team members do things that they do the best. The last point is that I have Chris Bunton, and I didn't realize Chris was online, but TWC ran with the chatbot, the Larry the chatbot during COVID time, a lot of work compensation related questions came. They did take advantage of that, and also the Google lobby. And Jody, I already talked about doing a lot of things on RPA, and I also see TDI, and then they've been. I'm seeing the business IT collaboration a lot more at TDI, and wanted to give a shout at how important that is. And then I'm sure that as we develop the state level COE, we should be able to share some of the code, some of the processes that we built, and make it. We're talking to a lot of teams to make that available as well. And once again, this is great effort. Thank you so much, and I love the demo, and then looking forward to more POCs and the life cycle that you shared.
Wonderful.